He thought he was untouchable, just another faceless creep on the internet, hiding behind a screen name, tossing out threats like he owned her. But when he tried to blackmail my friend with revenge porn, he made one fatal mistake. He didn't know who had her back. I'm an attorney, and in 45 minutes I tore his entire life apart. You know how sometimes you meet someone online, and for a moment, everything just feels easy? That's what happened with my friend. She's smart, thoughtful, and yet she made a mistake, but not one she should have to pay for with fear or humiliation. It started like a lot of these things do on a dating app. She matched with a guy who seemed charming, witty, a little older, but not in a creepy way. He claimed to travel a lot for work, which explained why he was in and out of the app. They hit it off, texting back and forth, late-night calls, even some playful flirting. It felt normal. It felt safe. He gave her just enough personal info to seem trustworthy, said he was from another country, worked in tech or some kind of operations, and he'd be traveling near her soon. He even mentioned the name of the company he worked for and that he might have to stop by a regional office close to her city. There were vague plans to meet, something casual, nothing intense. She told me about him at the time, and I remember thinking, okay, sounds like a decent guy, just be careful. But even I didn't spot the red flags at first. Eventually, as their conversations became more personal, he asked for pictures, not just selfies. And yeah, she sent a few, not because she was reckless, but because it felt like there was trust. Because when you're in that moment laughing with someone, feeling seen, it's easy to believe they're being honest with you too. And let me say this loud for the people in the back. Sending intimate pictures does not make someone stupid. It makes them human. It's vulnerability, not naivety. And it only becomes dangerous when it's exploited by the wrong person. At first he was respectful, complimentary. Even then, slowly, things started to change. His tone got weirder, possessive. He'd ask why she wasn't replying fast enough. He got annoyed when she wouldn't send more pictures immediately. She brushed it off, thinking maybe he was just stressed from work or tired from traveling. Then came the slip-ups, the stories that didn't add up, the random times he'd vanish online. And when he reappeared, there was always an excuse: a flight delay, a last-minute meeting, a dead phone. But gut instinct is powerful, and she finally trusted hers. She told him she wasn't comfortable meeting up anymore, that she didn't feel good about how things were going, that she needed space. That's when the mask came off. He went from flirt to predator in seconds. He told her he still had the pictures, that he'd kept every single one. And then he said the words no one should ever have to hear. If you don't keep talking to me, if you ghost me again, I'll send these to your family, to your job. I'll post them online. It wasn't even subtle. It was a threat, plain and sharp. She was frozen. She called me crying. The betrayal, the fear, the Shamit hit her all at once. And let me tell you, that was the moment I stopped being her friend and became her goddamn avenger. Because here's the thing. Predators like this guy count on people feeling powerless. They rely on victims staying silent, hoping the shame will be louder than the scream for help. But not this time. This time, the wrong guy picked the wrong woman with the wrong friend. At first the red flags were just whispers in the wind, easy to dismiss, even easier to ration. But once you look back, they were everywhere, waving in plain sight. It started with how fast he escalated things. 1 week in, and he was already talking about flying out to see her. Not just talk, he mentioned hotel names, gave dates, talked like it was already set in stone. That kind of intensity isn't always romantic. Sometimes it's a smokescreen. And this guy, he was laying it on thick. Then there was the way he dodged questions. Ask him where exactly he lived. Vague. Ask him about his job. He'd switch the topic. He said he worked in operations, but could never clearly define what he did. He sent one picture of himself in a company-branded polo. But when she asked follow-up questions about the office or team, he got cagey. That kind of thing should have been a clue. But when you're deep in a conversation, your guard's down. He made up stories that almost seemed believable, like he had a meeting in her city, or a conference nearby, and maybe they could grab dinner. Said it like it was no big deal, like it would be fun. But then came the tests. Little emotional manipulation games. He'd disappear for hours, then come back irritated she hadn't messaged more. Or he'd say things like, I'm risking a lot even talking to you. Like he was the one being brave. Subtle, a quiet way of making her feel like she owed him. One night he sent a photo that should have triggered every alarm bell in her head. It was his company laptop, wide open, with his Outlook calendar in full view. Except it wasn't just appointments, there was proprietary data visible, internal names, confidential project info. And he captioned it. See, told you I'm busy, but I still make time for you. It was such a weird flex, like he was showing off. but in the most careless way possible. She told me about it, and I remember thinking, he's either an idiot, or he thinks she's too naive to know how serious that is. Another time he sent a photo from his office, just a quick mirror selfie, but behind him there were other employees. Faces clearly visible, no permission, just snapped it and sent it off. That was the moment I realized he didn't see people as people, just props, and yet the real switch didn't flip until she tried to pull away. After a string of weird interactions, missed calls, and those creepy emotional tests, she told him nicely that she wasn't sure she wanted to meet, said she wanted to slow things down, be cautious. That's when he went full mask. The tone of his messages changed instantly. He accused her of wasting his time, mocked her for being paranoid. Then came the chilling line, "You should be careful who you ghost. You don't know who I am." He followed it up with screenshots, yes, the ones she had sent, her own photos, used like loaded weapons. "You disappear again. I'll make sure everyone sees these." That was the exact moment red flags became sirens. He froze. Every woman's worst nightmare was playing out in real time, and to make it worse, this wasn't just some guy from her town she could warn people about or report locally. He was from another country, a ghost with just enough real-world footprint to leave damage, but not enough to catch ease. But that's what he underestimated. Because what he couldn't know was that while he was busy flexing his fake control, she'd had me on speed dial. And I don't scare easy. He thought he was being clever, thought hiding behind a screen name and some half-baked stories would keep him safe. But he didn't realize he was being watched, documented. Every message, every photo, every careless reveal, she had saved it, and so did I. That's when I knew exactly what we were dealing with. A predator, a fraud, someone who thought shame was stronger than justice. And I decided then and there, I wasn't just going to stop him. I was going to make him regret ever thinking he could use fear as a weapon. Because some red flags, they don't just warn you, they light the fuse. You never forget the moment a conversation goes from uncomfortable to dangerous. It's like a trapdoor opening beneath your feet. You thought you were walking on solid ground, and suddenly, you're falling. For my friend, that moment was a single message. Just a string of words on a screen, but they hit like a punch to the gut. "Don't forget I've got the pictures. If you disappear again, I'll post them. I'll send them to your family, your job." I don't bluff. There it was. No more pretending. No more fake flirting. Just a raw, venomous threat. A man who thought that holding a handful of images gave him power. A man who mistook silence for weakness. She was shaking when she showed it to me. Her voice was trembling, barely above a whisper. What do I do? And that's when I switched gears from friend to firestorm. First, I made sure she was okay. That's the most important part, because threats like this aren't just digital. They hit your mental health. They make you question everything, your judgment, your safety, your dignity. They isolate you, making you feel like it's your fault, like you brought this on yourself. Let me say it again for anyone who needs to hear it. She did nothing wrong. He sent her a threat, a criminal one, a federal one. He'd crossed a line that he couldn't and I wasn't going to let him slither back into the shadows. I had her screenshots, the full conversation, the image where he confirmed his screen name while sending one of the photos, and a picture of him wearing his company's branded polo taken from a video chat. It was like he wrapped himself in evidence and handed us the noose. He also bragged about his job, sent her pictures of his workspace, talked about internal gossip, and once even discussed hooking up with someone in the office. He said verbatim that he had sex with an ex in his office and wanted to try that again with her if she visited. Gross, yes, but also incredibly useful. Because now we weren't just dealing with threats, we had context. We had a digital trailer timeline, a motive, proof of identity, and potential company policy violations. Hell, in some countries, even the possession of intimate photos with the intent to distribute can land you in prison. And lucky for us, the United States is one of them. Then came the real smoking gun. He sent her a picture of his motorcycle, full view, clean shot with a license plate showing. Like he'd never watched a single episode of CSI. He even said, "Took this today," time-stamping his own location. I asked her to send me everything, every image, every chat log, every screen name, and time, and I went to work. First, I traced the username straight to a TikTok account where he posted motorcycle content. Same bike, same build, same voice. Even that account was linked to an Instagram handle. Boom, real name found. Cross-referencing that with the company logo on his shirt from earlier, I checked LinkedIn. There he was. Full name, company title, even a corporate bio. Now, I had his job, his online behavior, and confirmation that he represented this company publicly while simultaneously threatening a woman with revenge porn. And here's where being a lawyer comes in handy. I crafted an email that wasn't just legally tied, it was surgical. I attached screenshots showing the threats, side by side with the images he had sent her. I noted how his username matched across multiple platforms. I attached the motorcycle picture with the visible license plate and the branded shirt photo. I included the workplace gossip messages, him talking about sex at work, talking about hooking up in the office. I made sure they understood this wasn't just a lapse in judgment. This was a walking lawsuit waiting to happen. I sent it to the CEO, the VP of HR, the operations manager, the head of PR. Not because I wanted to go nuclear, but because he already did. He just didn't think anyone would push the button back. Then I added the legal weight. I informed them that this wasn't a simple HR issue, that my client was a US citizen, that the threats had been made across international lines, that if they still intended to send him to the US for work, I would personally ensure federal law enforcement met him at the airport. And I could say that with confidence because one of the assistant US attorneys for this region, law school buddy, we played racquetball on Wednesdays. I also told them that I'd be contacting his local authorities because I had his license plate, and with that, I had his address. Let me tell you, writing that email was one of the most satisfying moments of my career, because people like him think they're operating in a void, that the internet is some lawless playground where actions don't have consequences. But he forgot something critical. The internet cuts both ways. He left a trail. He got cocky, and most importantly, he picked the wrong woman to threaten. There's a certain type of guy who thinks the rules don't apply to him, the kind who confuses anonymity with invincibility, the kind who thinks a fake name and a different country code make him untouchable. But let me make this clear. He picked the exact wrong friend to mess with. Because I don't just get angry, I get methodical. The moment I saw those threats, I stopped seeing a person and started seeing a case file. Exhibit A, screenshots of his threat. Exhibit B, identifying pictures. Exhibit C, all the dumb things he sent her thinking they'd disappear into the void. This wasn't revenge. This was accountability, served cold and precise. First, I mapped out everything. I had his username linked to TikTok, from TikTok to Instagram, from Instagram to LinkedIn, from LinkedIn to the company website, which had a staff page. He was right. Their name, face, title, job description. Then came the motorcycle shot. He'd sent her a clean picture of his ride with a clearly visible license plate. Do you know how easy it is to trace a vehicle when you have the plate in the country? Shockingly easy, if you know what to look for. His location narrowed down. Now I had digital ID, workplace info, physical location, and, most importantly, intent. That's the golden word in cases like these. Intent. He didn't accidentally mention the photos. He threatened to use them. That, my friends, is where everything crosses into criminal territory. I didn't come at him with emotion, I came at him with strategy. I built a full case summary, complete with visual exhibits. I'd blurred any images that weren't necessary for identification because we have class. Even when burning someone to the ground, I made it clear this wasn't a bluff. And I wasn't just any lawyer sending a nastygram. I was a connected one with reach. And then I went full school. I emailed the CEO first with the subject line, urgent employee conduct involving criminal threats and corporate liability. You think HR ignores that kind of email? Think again. I laid out the entire timeline, the threats, the identification, the potential for reputational damage, and the looming threat of federal involvement. Because if they wanted to let him step on a plane to the US, I'd make sure they were co-signing that criminal exposure. After the CEO came HR, then PR, then the operations head. I CC'd no one, because I wanted each of them to read it as a direct shot, no safety in numbers. I wanted them to feel the weight individually. And then I added something else, something very intentional. If no action is taken within the week, I will be forced to escalate through formal legal channels and notify the press that this company chose to continue employment for an individual actively engaged in interstate and international threats involving sexual coercion. That wasn't a threat. That was a promise. These companies love their public image. They'll fire someone for a bad tweet from 10 years ago, but a guy actively threatening revenge porn on a US citizen while wearing their merch in selfies. Yeah, that's PR poison. They couldn't afford to let this one go unnoticed. Meanwhile, I started compiling the law enforcement angle. I knew which country he was in. I knew the local law standards. I had contacts in international cybercrime units. I started drafting reports and gathering details for local authorities. I wasn't just building a wall, I was enclosing him in a legal coffin. You want to know how satisfying it is to be the storm they never saw coming. Because while he was probably out there, texting someone else, thinking he'd scared my friend into silence, I was outlining the timeline for his entire collapse. And the best part, I hadn't even responded to him yet. See, most predators want a reaction. Fear, pleading, anything to make them feel powerful. But we didn't give him that. We gave him silence, the kind that says, oh, you're not in control anymore. Because while he was flexing fake dominance in private DMS, I was privately forwarding copies of his Outlook screenshots, his company's internal calendar, to their legal department, reminding them of the GDPR violations, the breach of confidentiality, and the fact that he sent sensitive documents to someone who didn't even work there. He wasn't just a criminal, he was a corporate liability, a lawsuit waiting to happen, and I gift-wrapped it for them. You could say I was angry, sure, but more than that, I was prepared to hold every single door open to expose him, to show companies what happens when they don't vet their people, to remind predators that threats aren't one-way weapons. He thought no one would care, that my friend would be too scared or ashamed to tell anyone. He had no idea that behind us stood someone with a law degree, a war chest of evidence, and absolutely zero chill when it comes to protecting people I care about. So yeah, he messed with the wrong woman. But more importantly, he messed with her lawyer. You know what's funny about guys like him? They think they're ghosts. Untouchable. Like just because they don't use their full name or don't post their home address online, they're somehow untraceable. But here's the truth. Everyone leaves footprints. And this guy, he left behind a damn marching band. It started with the username. My friend had saved his profile handle from the dating app. It wasn't some random string of numbers, it was something unique. Probably something he thought sounded cool. But like most self-absorbed creeps, he used that same handle across platforms. A quick search showed me his TikTok account. It had a few harmless videos, mostly motorcycle content, some POV selfies, random gym mirror shots, harmless until you zoom in. In one clip, he walked past his bike, and there it was again. The same motorcycle he sent my friend. Same license plate. It was proof. From TikTok, I reverse traced the linked Instagram. Same profile name, slightly different handle, but close enough that any casual search would make the connection. His Instagram was even sloppier pictures of food, tagged locations, and one glorious image of him standing in front of a company banner at what looked like a corporate event. That was my first jackpot. Zoom in, and I saw the logo on his shirt matched the banner behind him. It was a mid-sized tech company that did logistics work. That shirt, the same one he wore in the selfie he sent her, same guy, same beard, same cocky smile. At this point, I already had enough to establish identity. But why stop there? I went to the company's website. They had a media page featuring press releases and internal updates. One article had a group photo of employees receiving awards and, lo and behold, there he was. Third from the left, looking like the smug IT gremlin he was. Now I had a full name. With the name came LinkedIn. His profile was wide open. And guess what? He'd listed every single place he'd worked for the last 10 years. Every job title. Every project. This man basically handed me his CV for a court case. Scrolling through, I spotted a detail he probably forgot about. He listed himself as a speaker at a past tech convention. So I dug a little deeper. That event. It had a digital program online, complete with session videos. I skimmed until I found him. And there he was, introducing himself, stating his full name, role, company, and even his hometown. Cross-referenced that with the license plate on his motorcycle, and it confirmed the region. Cross-referenced that with public registration databases, and I had a narrowed residential address range. All of this I found in under an hour, but the digital idiocy didn't stop there. Remember that photo he sent my friend, the one of his Outlook calendar? That single picture gave me more leverage than he could have possibly imagined, because calendars show more than just time slots. This guy had a visible internal meeting list, some with client names, project codes, and even a few initials that looked like employee names. That's confidential data. Now I had not only proof of misconduct but potential violations of his company's data security policies. He'd also sent her images of his workspace's actual desk, with papers and documents in the background. Zooming in revealed internal ID numbers, sticky notes with what looked like login hints, and again, visible co-workers who probably had no idea they were being photographed. Let's tally that up. Revenge porn threat. Company representation while issuing those threats. Distribution of proprietary data, non-consensual photos of employees, sexual misconduct discussions involving workplace activity, and his own dumb face as the cherry on top. He didn't just leave a trail. He left a roadmap, and I was following it step by step. From his company's LinkedIn followers, I pulled the names of the executive team. Within minutes, I had emails for the CEO, head of HR, and legal counsel. a little cross-referencing through PR directories, and I added the media contact and operations director to my list. But it wasn't done. You see, people like him rely on time. They assume they've got days or weeks before someone can piece it together. So I accelerated the timeline. While most people would have hesitated, I went full throttle. I compiled everything, every screenshot, every ID marker, every bit of conversation where he bragged or threatened or confessed. Each file was labeled, time-stamped, and logged with an accompanying note explaining relevance. This wasn't just me being organized. This was a legal folder designed to walk any prosecutor straight through the case with zero confusion. I made a timeline, from first contact to final threat, with dates, message, excerpts, and photo evidence. The whole thing read like a digital diary of self-destruction. And here's the kicker: he probably still thought he was in control. He had no idea that while he was ignoring messages and waiting for her to crawl back scared, someone was preparing to incinerate the bridges he thought protected him. That's what makes this whole thing so poetic. He wanted to use the internet to ruin her life. He never expected the internet to be the very thing that ruined it, because in the age of information, hiding is a myth, especially when you're dumb enough to document your entire downfall like it's an Instagram story. Receipts. That's what this came down to. Because when you go after someone who thinks they can hide behind vague usernames and burner accounts, the only thing more satisfying than proving who they are is using their own words and images to do it. And this guy, he didn't just hand me a few bricks, he practically built me a buffet. The first major piece was the picture he sent of himself in a branded polo. It wasn't just any shirt, it had the company's logo embroidered cleanly over the chest. You could even make out a department name on the sleeve, which made identifying his exact team laughably easy. In one message he said, "Busy week at the regional ops hub." Combine that with the company logo and a quick check on the company's regional branches, and I had not only his workplace but his office location. Then there was the mirror selfie from his office bathroom. Innocent, right? Not so much when there's a company ID card hanging from his lanyard. Sure, it was flipped, but a little image enhancement later, and you could make out part of the name and the employee code. Even better, on the counter behind him was a familiar branded hand sanitizer bottle, the kind the company had tweeted about during the pandemic. Proud to protect our employees. Yeah, proud to hire creeps apparently, but the goldmine. The Outlook calendar photo. He sent it to my friend with a smug caption. "Proof I'm swamped, lol. Still make time for you though." And oh, it was proof all right. Proof of his entire workday. Proof of client names. Proof of internal acronyms that, when Googled, tied directly to the company's proprietary software suite. You could literally see the time slots marked global sync call and confidential vendor review. He even had a one-to-one with a manager listed, full name and all. I cross-checked that manager on LinkedIn. She worked at the company, exactly in the department he claimed. Boom. Chain of command verified. Then came the confessions. Creeps like him love to overshare when they think you're impressed, and he thought my friend was impressed. In one chat he wrote, "LOL, I once hooked up with my ex in the server room, no one noticed." That was strike one. Another message said, "If you come here, I'll sneak you into my office. Doors locked from the inside." Strike two. Then, out of nowhere, he bragged, "I keep a toothbrush in my desk drawer, just in case." Yeah, that's not cute. That's gross. Especially when paired with pictures he sent from his actual desk, one of which clearly showed the toothbrush. He thought he was being edgy, flirty. What he was actually doing was confirming his identity through real-world artifacts. And it gets better. One time, while trying to prove how connected and legit he was, he took a screenshot of a Slack conversation he had with a coworker. He sent it to her, but Slack screenshots show usernames and times. His handle matched the name on his LinkedIn. The coworker matched the company directory. It was like he was building a digital alibi for me, except instead of proving innocence, he was weaving his own rope. Oh, and remember the motorcycle. He didn't just send her one picture. He sent multiple different angles, different lighting, and one glorious close-up of his helmet sitting on the seat. On that helmet, a reflective decal with his initials. Guess what matched his email address and LinkedIn profile? That helmet, by the way, showed up again in the TikTok he posted publicly. Same reflective sticker, same model, same license plate in the background. He might as well have signed a confession with a sparkler. By the time I was done, I had built an entire identity matrix. Photos of his face, workplace, company ID, branded clothing, screenshots of internal documents, company tech, Slack chats, and calendar entries. Videos posted under his public handle tied directly to his TikTok and Instagram. Statements he made about work affairs, workplace hookups, and access to sensitive data. metadata from images confirming timestamps and device types, vehicle images linking to a physical address and local region. It wasn't just a case anymore, it was a portfolio. A dumb predator caught by his own vanity and ego, because he wanted to look important. He wanted to seem powerful. He wanted her to think he was someone who mattered. And in doing that, he gave me every tool I needed to shatter the illusion he was hiding behind. And here is the final cherry on top. He once sent her a video from his office, just to show how empty it was at night. Didn't he realize the motion sensor security light flashed his name badge in the reflection of the window, slowed down frame by frame. There it was crystal clear. His full name, on video, while making inappropriate comments, from his work desk. So now I had proof of threats, proof of intent, proof of identity, and proof of connection to a corporate entity. He wasn't just some anonymous he was a liability with a face, a name, a history, and a growing number of victims, probably, and I was ready to send the entire package to his employer, law enforcement, and federal cybercrime authorities. This wasn't just revenge. This was a digital execution. Because when you threaten someone I care about with humiliation and ruin, you don't just lose the game, you lose everything. Some people learn through consequences. Others, they need a billboard with blinking lights to understand how badly they've messed up. So once I had every shred of evidence cataloged, labeled, and backed up twice, I shifted my focus to where it would hurt him most, his job. Now this wasn't just about getting a creep fired. This was about drawing a hard line between someone as private perversions and a company as professional liability. Because whether they liked it or not, they were already involved. Their logo appeared in his selfies. Their office was the backdrop to his disgusting messages. Their laptop provided by their IT department was what he used to intimidate a woman with revenge porn. That makes it their problem. So, I started drafting the email. Not some angry rant, not some long-winded, emotional vent. This was a corporate-targeted missile, structured, legal, backed by undeniable facts, and, more importantly, a warning that made even the most risk-tolerant exec sweat bullets. Subject line: formal notice of employee misconduct involving threats of sexual coercion and data exposure. Clinical, cold, unshakable. I am contacting you regarding a matter of significant concern involving one of your employees. Full name: who has been identified through multiple verified channels as engaging in criminal behavior, including threats of non-consensual distribution of intimate images against a U.S. citizen. Then I moved into the evidence. Screenshots of the threats, matched to usernames tied directly to his social media accounts. Photos of him wearing your company's logo while discussing sexually explicit behavior. A full Outlook calendar, screenshot revealing proprietary internal scheduling. Photos taken in your office showing non-consenting employees. Slacks and emails referencing real staff, real internal systems, and highly inappropriate sexual commentary about acts performed on your premises. A video from inside your building, timestamped and identifying him via badge reflection. I told them I had confirmed his identity through image analysis, metadata, LinkedIn verification, and public-facing content that directly connects his online alias to his real-world identity and employment with them. I didn't say maybe, I didn't say allegedly. I said verified, and I meant it. Then came the part that made them sit up straight. This information is being prepared for submission to the local law enforcement agency in his country, and the U.S. Federal Bureau of Investigation, because your company is a facilitating party by providing him with the tools and international access to continue this harassment, including your corporate devices and travel support. You are advised to act swiftly to distance yourselves from his behavior. I knew what that meant to them. Liability, PR, disaster, legal exposure. I included a time-stamped copy of a threat message he sent while identifying himself as being on the company as property proof he was using their network, their systems, during work hours to commit a felony. And yes, I used the word felony. Now, any company with half a legal team would go into panic mode at this point, but it wasn't done. I included a paragraph detailing the laws he had violated. Under U.S. federal law, it is a crime to threaten the non-consensual distribution of intimate material across state or national borders. Under the UK and several European jurisdictions, similar statutes exist with data protection overlays, especially if the images were stored or transmitted using corporate devices or accounts. If he were to travel to the US, as he indicated in messages that screenshotted, he would be subject to immediate arrest and investigation by federal law enforcement. I even included the contact information for the assistant US attorney I'd spoken to, just so they knew this wasn't an empty warning. Then came the real kicker. If your company chooses to ignore this behavior and proceeds with his planned travel to the US, we will consider that a willful decision to support an individual under active criminal investigation and a violation of federal law. This will be made public. I will personally issue a press release to all major media outlets documenting your company's refusal to act on this matter. Boom, the nuclear option. No CEO wants to wake up to their company trending on Twitter with a hashtag revenge porn. No HR manager wants to explain to investors why a known predator was allowed to represent their brand on foreign soil. And I knew they'd listen. Because this wasn't just a disgruntled ex or a vague accusation. This was a legal complaint, submitted with a digital paper trail and attached evidence that any investigator or lawyer could follow without a second thought. And I didn't stop with the email. I sent it separately to each exec, CEO, HR, Ops, PR, legal, because when people receive the same bomb in their inbox simultaneously, the panic doesn't trickle down, it explodes upward. Within 2 hours, I got my first "we've received your message and are reviewing it" all. By hour 6, I had a direct message from the company's general counsel asking for a phone call. You bet I took that call, and I let them know, with the calm precision of someone holding every card, that this wasn't going away quietly, that I was prepared to send everything to the authorities with or without their help, but that it would be a lot better for them if they handled it internally before that happened. They said they needed 48 hours. I gave them 24. Because my friend, she didn't have the luxury of time when he made those threats. She didn't get 48 hours to breathe before he said he'd destroy her life, so now he doesn't get the luxury either. When I hung up that call, I knew the first domino had fallen, and it wouldn't be long before the rest came crashing down. The second I hit send on that final message to the company's legal team, I turned my attention to the bigger guns, the ones he never saw coming. See, when someone outside the US threatens a US citizen with revenge porn, it's not just creepy, it's a federal crime. And I wasn't bluffing when I said I'd make sure the FBI was waiting for him if he ever stepped foot on their soil. Because I've worked with the Department of Justice before. I know how the chain of command flowed, and I happen to know one of the assistant U.S. attorneys from my district. We studied together. We've clinked beers. We've discussed actual federal revenge porn prosecutions over lunch. So when I called him and laid out the situation, he took it seriously. I explained the timeline, the threats, the digital evidence. I didn't just tell him, I showed him the screenshots, the identifying photos, the way this guy tied himself to a US-based threat across international borders with receipts from start to finish. I told him that the man had openly stated his plans to travel to the US for work, that he had corporate sponsors enabling that travel, and that his company had been formally notified of his conduct. And do you know what my buddy said? If that guy gets on a plane, I want the flight number. You see, when a crime crosses international lines and includes a U.S. citizen as the target, it becomes federal jurisdiction. And when that crime includes sexually explicit threats and coercion, it moves fast. The FBI doesn't always jump on every cyber threat. But when someone documents their own crime, confesses to it, and leaves a digital signature with GPS coordinates practically embedded, that's low-hanging fruit. So, we started working. He gave me the contact info for the cybercrime liaison in the regional FBI office. I submitted a full report documented in chronological order with visual attachments, suspect identification, and a narrative explanation of the threats. I outlined the exact U.S. statutes being violated. I showed how the material was stored, transmitted, and referenced across devices and platforms. I even included the suspect's projected travel date, airport, and destination. They didn't just acknowledge the report. They thanked me for the clarity, for how airtight the case already was. I knew then that if this guy touched down in the US, there'd be boots on the ground. Agents with warrants. Laptops seized. Phones checked. He thought he was walking into a business trip. What he'd actually be walking into was a federal interrogation. But I didn't stop there. I also contacted law enforcement in his home country. Their cybercrime division accepted the complaint and began logging the details. Because while I had no illusions that they'd knock on his door tomorrow, I made sure they had enough to flag him, enough to tie his name to a digital history that wouldn't just disappear. And here's the thing, predators like him forget. Jurisdictions cooperate, especially when it comes to cross-border crimes involving harassment, digital evidence, and clear threats to citizens. Now his name isn't just in a company debt. It's in international law enforcement records, tagged, tracked, stored. He's officially no longer anonymous. His company. They moved quickly after my phone call. They confirmed that his access was suspended pending investigation. We take these allegations seriously, the legal counsel said. Corporate speak for. We are scared out of our damn minds. And I wanted them to be. because they were about to send a man accused of digitally threatening a woman to another country where those threats were actionable crimes. That's not just bad optics, that's negligence. But let's get personal for a second. Do you know what it feels like to go from victim to vindicated? To have someone try to reduce you to silent sand, then watch as a team of people rise up to stand beside you. That's what I wanted for my friend. Not just justice. Power. Because when she got that message, when he said he'd ruin her, she felt alone. Like maybe no one would believe her. Like maybe he had the upper hand, but now the feds know his name. His bosses know his secrets. His own words have been preserved, filed, and distributed. This isn't just a social consequence. This is legal. Lifelong, permanent. His actions are no longer whispers in a private chat. They're written into legal records. And every single person he tries to manipulate from here on out, he won't know if they've heard his story, if they've Googled him, if they know that once he tried to threaten the wrong woman and ended up answering to the United States government. That's the kind of fallout you don't walk away from. And it's only just beginning. After the emails were sent, the calls made, and the case handed to the feds, there was a strange moment of silence, like the calm right before a storm slams the coast. We waited not with fear, but with certainty, because the man who thought he had control had finally lost it all. The first sign that things were moving. The LinkedIn profile vanished, gone one day. It was their full job history, polished headshot, professional jargon. The next, error 404. The digital mask was cracking. Then came the update from my contact at the company. They'd launched an internal investigation. His credentials were suspended, access to systems revoked, pending outcome of further review, they said. But I could read between the lines. He's done. From what I gathered, HR and legal had already called him in for a meeting. Imagine that conversation. So, about this email we received. The one with screenshots of you threatening a US citizen with revenge porn. Let's talk about the photos of company property. And maybe also the part where you bragged about sex in the office. Yeah, that's not a disciplinary slap on the wrist. That's the kind of meeting where they walk you to the door before lunch. And the fallout didn't stop there. My friend, the woman he tried to silence, she got stronger by the day. Every update I gave her, every time I forwarded a message saying, they're taking action, or law enforcement has your back, you could see the fear melt away, replaced with fire. She even told me, I thought I'd spend the next year worrying about this. Now I just want to make sure no one else has to. That's when I knew the power had truly shifted. What she didn't know yet, but what I saw behind the scenes was the ripple effect. That company, they didn't just deal with him. They sent out a quiet internal memo reminding staff about code of conduct, digital privacy, and professionalism. They started doing damage control before a headline could exist, because companies live in fear of exposure, and I gave them a close-up preview of what that would look like. A week later, his Instagram went private. His digital identity, the one he used to flirt, manipulate, threaten, was crumbling. Because that identity was built on arrogance. He never expected to be exposed. But the best part, law enforcement did follow up, both locally in his country and via cybercrime channels in the US. My report was acknowledged, logged, and flagged for action should he travel internationally. If he tries to enter the US, he's on a list, not the kind that gets you perks at the airport, the kind that gets you pulled aside and asked very uncomfortable questions. His company, trying to stay ahead of the storm, may have let him resign. That S corporate code for we're cutting ties but want to say why publicly to protect our brand, which is fine. Let them save face, because he lost everything that mattered. His job, gun his online life, dismantled his reputation, ruined before it ever really started. And that fear he once tried to inject into my friend, it's been replaced by power. She knows now, she feels, if that one person standing up can shift the entire dynamic. That silence isn't strength. That speaking up is, and me, I'm proud. Because I didn't just destroy some predator in a hoodie and fake profile picture. I made him accountable in every way that matters. His company knows who he is. The government knows who he is. And someday, when he tries to pull this again with someone else, there'll be a paper trail long enough to tie a noose. That's what happens when you come for the wrong person's friend. And we're not done. Because stories like hers, they're not rare. Too many women get threatened, silenced, manipulated, and never speak up because they think nothing can be done. But here's proof. Something can be done, and when you do it right, with precision and rage, you don't just protect one victim. You warn every predator watching from the shadows. This was just one battle. But now, they know we fight back. If you've ever sat behind a screen, fingers hovering over the keyboard, thinking you could control someone with fear. This message is for you. If you've ever whispered threats in someone's inbox, convinced they'd be too ashamed to fight back, listen closely, because this is where your illusion ends. You think you're clever because you use a fake name, because you're in another country, because you created a burner profile with no personal info. But let me tell you something that'll keep you up at night. You are never as hidden as you think. Every message you send, every image you share, every word you type, it all leaves a trace. And for someone who knows how to follow it, it's like a neon trail through the dark. You think you're the hunter, but you've already been marked. You feed on silence, on hesitation, on shame. You count on your victims being too scared to tell anyone. You bet on the idea that no one will believe them, that no one will stand up. But not this time. Not anymore. Because this time, the girl you tried to threaten had someone behind her who didn't flinch. And the minute you tried to use fear as a weapon, we turned that weapon on you. You thought she was alone. You thought she'd fold. But instead, you got the legal equivalent of a wrecking ball dropped on your life. You lost your job, your reputation, your digital cover. And every time you Google yourself now, you'll wonder, how much do they know? Every new relationship you try to start, every time you go to send another message, there will be that whisper in the back of your mind. What if she talks? What if someone finds out what I did? That's not paranoia. That's justice echoing back at you. You made a choice to hurt someone, to corner them with humiliation, to try and own their body with threats. And what you learned, what every predator watching this needs to understand, is this. That power you think you have, it's paper because when someone stands up, when they refuse to be silent, when they pull their people close and say, no more, your little kingdom of fear collapses. So, here's your warning. If you're out there thinking about threatening someone, blackmailing them, shaming them into silence, just know that someone might be watching, someone who isn't afraid of you, someone who knows how to trace your every move, someone who will, and when they do, it won't take long to tear down everything you've built. We live in a world where silence used to protect predators, but that world is dying, and in its place, we're building something that bites back. If you believe in fighting back, in protecting the vulnerable, and in never letting creeps win, hit that like button. Subscribe for more real stories of justice and revenge, and share this with someone who needs to know they're not alone, because we don't whisper anymore. We roar.